This breakdown of Darth Tyranus' martial skills and prowess is merely a teaser trailer for my upcoming collaboration with King Orange, Count Dooku vs. Dark Empire Luke Skywalker, and is a small taste of his analytical writing as he was the one who wrote the majority of the Dooku Breakdown. I also intend to make Count Dooku the subject of a separate video later down the line, further breaking down his dueling abilities, and this analysis will play a role in that. The plan is that I upload this video as an early Christmas present, then I work my end off editing the final product and release it at the end of January of 2024. And fair warning, between both of our analysis put together, it's projected that this video is likely to be at minimum 50 minutes long, so make sure you get some popcorn. So with that said, now onto the sources. Orange's analysis of Count Dooku's martial feats will be pulled from the following sources from both classic EU and canon sources: the Episode 2 film and comic tie-in, the Episode 3 film, novel, video game, and comic tie-in, Jango Fett Open Seasons, the Dark Horse comics, the Yoda Dark Rendezvous, Labyrinth of Evil, the Clone Wars micro-series, Tales of the Jedi, and the following episodes of TCW, Season 4 Night Sisters, and Season 6 The Lost Ones. With background information pulled from the Jedi Path, the Book of Sith, the Essential Guide to the Force, the Complete Encyclopedia, and the TCW Campaign Guide. For those of you wondering, no, this video is not in response to Evan and Genzurai's collaboration of Dooku vs. Darth Malak, though both Orange and myself will be posting our thoughts on that one eventually. As for the reasoning behind using both Legends and canon sources for Dooku, I'm gonna let Orange explain this one.
Although this analysis will mostly be stemmed from Legends continuity, specifically classic expanded universe material, I have decided to make use of TCW and its tie-in materials as another source for this analysis, as in spite of my personal issues with some aspects of Count Dooku's characterization within the show, his capabilities, technique, and style remain mostly consistent, with the show's only sin being that Lord Tyrannus is underpowered compared to his EU depictions. But in fairness, every TCW character suffers this problem. I would also like to say that while this will not be used as a source, the Tales of the Jedi miniseries will be used as a visual representation for describing his feats and techniques during portions of this analysis.
So with that said, enjoy!
During his young years within the Jedi Order, Dooku was the most gifted student of his generation and was a natural prodigy with a lightsaber. Taking full advantage of his gifts, Dooku developed to become one of the greatest lightsaber duelists in the history of the Jedi Order, and served as a remarkable lightsaber instructor. However, after his departure from the Jedi Order and subsequent fall to the dark side, Dooku's combat gifts would be turned against the Jedi Order and would be responsible for the deaths of many Jedi within his era. Dooku's chosen fighting style was Form 2 Makashi, which was the second classical form of Jedi lightsaber combat. Makashi was an ancient fencing style that was specifically designed for lightsaber dueling. For a time, Form 2 was the most common combat discipline a Jedi could learn. However, it gradually got phased out due to the emergence of blaster-based weapons becoming more and more common, rendering Makashi obsolete in the eyes of most Jedi. This only caused Dooku's choice to specialize in Makashi to be considered both unconventional and extremely rare. Dooku had also refined skill in the other 6 forms of lightsaber combat, and could serve as an instructor for any of them, and built his skill sets to be able to counter all of them if need be. While Dooku did have the capabilities of using other forms, he viewed the use of hybridized styles and techniques with disdain, considering it to compromise a duelist's overall skill by spreading themselves too thin on many disciplines. While it could be said that his knowledge of the other forms did influence his personal style, even if unconsciously, Dooku never actively employed any other style other than pure Makashi within live combat. Accordingly, Dooku used his own personalized technique to take the capabilities and core elements of Makashi to the absolute maximum level. Dooku utilized a linear cut and thrust style that prioritized precision, fluidity, control, and energy conservation. One of Makashi's greatest strengths was how conservative it was, with little physical exertion being required to employ the discipline effectively. This made the style perfectly suited for Dooku and allowed him to further compensate for his advanced age. Dooku was noted to be so relaxed when fighting that observers even described him as if he was dancing during his engagements. One element of Makashi's discipline that Dooku strongly adhered to was the development of unique movesets in order to avoid predictability. Dooku had been able to take Makashi to such a high degree that he was even able to transcend many of its greatest weaknesses as a style. He was highly effective on the battlefield and was able to take on multiple opponents with little difficulty, and was even able to overcome one of Makashi's most consistent shortcomings through performing blast deflection. However, Dooku did have notable shortcomings in trying to meet opponents head-to-head, and had instead opted to take the path of least resistance, using lateral movements to keep himself out of his opponent's line of attack while also keeping them in his. Dooku built his offensive to work to bypass and undermine the defenses of his opponents, rather than overwhelm it outright. Meanwhile, Dooku built his defense to deflect and evade enemy strikes rather than attempting to stonewall them. Something worth noting about Count Dooku is that he rarely assumed an offensive or defensive posture, and instead rotated consistently between an advance and retreat moveset. This technique allowed him to avoid head-on engagements by not allowing his opponents to form an offensive or defensive foothold. Dooku had also been refined in integrating force and physical attacks within his lightsaber sequences, using telekinesis to bypass the enemy's defenses and leave more lines open for attack. This added to Dooku's strategy of creating diversionary attacks and opposing psychological warfare to undermine his opponent's defenses. As a built complement to Dooku's approach to lightsaber combat, Dooku built himself a curved tilt lightsaber that was equipped with a dual phase function that enabled him to shorten the blade into a shoto. As a Jedi, Dooku had a blue Ilum crystal as the focusing lens. However, after becoming Darth Tyranus, Dooku would exchange his blue crystal for a red synthetic crystal, which provided him greater cutting power at the expense of maneuverability. Overall, Dooku's approach to lightsaber combat was a direct reflection of both his greatest strengths, but also his most crippling weaknesses. When Dooku is able to hold the initiative, keep his opponents off balance, and prevent his opponents from bringing their full power to bear, he is extremely precise and lethal. However, the main reason Dooku built his technique the way he did in avoiding head-on engagements was because of his inability to handle head-to-head engagements, especially given his old age. As his final duel with Anakin Skywalker showcased, when Dooku is cornered with no control or escape, he crumbles under the pressure. In conclusion, while Dooku does suffer some serious weaknesses, they should not be viewed as a detraction from his skills or effectiveness. Count Dooku is one of the greatest duelists in galactic history, the ultimate prodigy and refiner of Makashi, engaged some of the greatest warriors within the Jedi Order, and has only barely fallen short as the greatest swordmaster of his era. In the end, Count Dooku did not contain the power of a Rancor nor the speed of a Kaidu, but possessed the precision of a serpent who through every aspect of his style, technique, and discipline would make his enemies suffer the death of 1,000 cuts.